podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by DirecTV Stream. DirecTV Stream is your home for football this season because it's the best way to catch the games you won't want to miss. And with the DirecTV Stream Sports Hub, you can follow your favorite teams and track scores all in one place. That means more ways to follow the biggest hits, drives, and wins this season. So many you may need your own touchdown dance. So get your sports together and get your TV together at DirecTV.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Leaving out the avocado in your salad to save money is not good for morale or your fiber intake. Luckily, State Farm knows the value of the little things. It's why they've got options like insuring your home and ride with surprisingly great rates on both. Because you shouldn't have to give up what you love for great insurance. For surprisingly great rates, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Call or go to statefarm.com for a quote today.
Welcome to another Love Tennis podlet. It is just coming up to 2 o'clock in the morning here in New York, and not that long ago all the tennis finished, which is pretty remarkable, really. It was only really by good fortune that Bianca Andreescu and Beatrice Haddad-Maia got on before midnight at all, but they did, thanks to a late running schedule and some slightly insane scheduling that also involved them cancelling several of the late night buses, which is part of the reason why I got home quite so late. This won't be a long one, I'll tell you right now, partly because I want to go to bed and because I want to get it in your feeds before you all get to work. And as I speak, lots of people in the UK are already up for and frankly at work, so I might keep it relatively brief. There were lots of things to talk about today. It started, and it feels to me like about 4 days ago that it started for me on Arthur Ashe with Andy Murray against Emilio Nava, which is a really remarkable match actually, because the first set was 84 minutes, which it wasn't particularly humid, it wasn't particularly slow, it was hot admittedly, but there was a storm on Tuesday night and that cleared a lot of the humidity. It was down from like 65% to about 30%. But, you know, Emilio Nava played well in that first set. He moved really well, he's quick around the court, and, you know, Murray said afterwards that Mark Petchey had told him that Nava in that first set was hitting forehand numbers that would have put him in the top 3 on tour, and similarly was serving at levels that would have put him in that kind of bracket as well. So Nava played a really high level and probably deserved to shade the first set. Murray had about 8 breakpoint opportunities that he failed to take, and you know, he said afterwards he would take that back, obviously, but he also said afterwards that he changed things a bit after the first set and started to step up a bit more and get into the court and dictate the rallies a bit more. And it worked, because he then won 3 sets for the loss of just 4 games. So it was this weird topsy-turvy match where we had an hour and 24 minutes of grind, and it really was grind. You know, there were long games and long points. And then sort of hour and 40 minutes of just Murray playing elite tennis against a guy who, I mean, Emilio Nava will go a long way, I think. He's got the attitude and he's a decent player. He thinks an awful lot of himself, I'm reliably informed, but yeah, Murray is a 3-time Grand Slam champion and he put him away. He was really pleased afterwards with his physicality. He said his body held up to it really well, and you know, we know how much Andy is trying to make sure that that's as high as it can be in terms of level, his physicality, and I think that's fair. I think it's fair to say it was tonight. So, yeah, very impressive. It wasn't the only close match on show. Actually, of all the men's matches today, only 2 went in straight sets, which is pretty remarkable when you consider it's a second round day. One of those straight sets victories was Jack Draper over Felix Auger-Aliassime, the last match I watched tonight, at least live. Incredible. Jack Draper, he's now going to be ranked just inside the top 50. This time last year, he was 270 in the world. He hadn't won any challenger titles. He was just starting that journey. Now he's inside the top 50. He's beaten the number 6 seed, Felix Auger-Aliassime, 6-4, 6-4, 6-4. And he is into the third round to play Karen Khachanov. Now, I should preface all of this by saying that I did think Felix Auger-Aliassime was a really good matchup. And if you are subscribed to the Inside Tennis newsletter, which you can do through inews.co.uk, just head over to the tennis section. You'll see lots of banners advertising the tennis newsletter that I write for the Eye. And if you read that, you'd have seen that I'd picked that as the match of the day to watch, and potentially the upset of the day as well, because it was a really good matchup for Jack. Felix hasn't got the best backhand in the world. He is a good mover and very physical, but Jack thinks his physicality is on a level with that now, so you kind of take that weapon away, if you like. And Felix isn't a great returner, and Jack's an elite server. He's big lefty serve, big forehand. And to be honest, the difference that I saw today that I hadn't seen before was, and Mike Dixon, the Mail, said it, and it triggered a lot of things in my head, his rally ball was so consistent and rock solid, and it just gave Felix so few opportunities to tee off in the way that he can. And I know that Felix Auger-Aliassime has previous at this stage of Grand Slams, and he hasn't been able to produce his best, in the biggest tournaments. But it's nevertheless a huge boost for Jack to go out and do that, and do it in such comprehensive style. And it was his first time playing on a stadium court in New York as well, and that's difficult. For people who haven't watched tennis over in the States before, it's a very different experience. It's noisy. People are getting up. I mean, Jack said afterwards, he said he was, he'd never seen someone like they did today get up out of their seat and walk off as he was hitting a forehand. And that's a real challenge if you've not done it before. Felix Auger-Aliassime has played in North America lots and at the US Open lots. Jack really hasn't, and he wasn't on a stadium court for his first round match. And he was for this one, and I'm sure when he plays Hatchinoff he'll be on a decent court again. So he's getting used to that. But he did say afterwards, I asked him about it, and he did sort of say, look, the crowds are great here, but it was weird. And it was noisy. So he'll go on to play Hatchinoff, who thrashed Cam Norrie at the French. I know Draper and Norrie have trained together a lot, and they hang out together. Their lockers are next to each other in the locker room, so I'm sure they will discuss it at some point. Excuse me. The other match, and you're probably surprised I didn't talk about it first, but thought I'd give you a little build-up that has to be spoken about, is Serena Williams against Nanette Kontaveit. There's so much that went on in this match. It's hard to know where to start. The first thing to say is that the atmosphere was absolutely electric, as you'd expect. It was insane. I couldn't quite believe that they could replicate what happened on Monday, but they did. What they also replicated were the two montages, one at the beginning and one at the end, which were just recycled. And, I kind of thought the Monday thing was fine because you don't know how many matches you're going to get out of her, and if you want to do a big, farewell ceremony, it's absolutely right, you do it on the Monday. But then I think you should just treat every other match as a relatively normal one, and say, well, okay, you've had your farewell, now let's see what tennis you can play. And once again, Kontaveit walked out, was announced, sat down, and then had to wait 2 minutes while there was a Queen Latifah voiceover played, which quite a lot of us had seen already. So, I think that's pretty unfair. I appreciate Serena's an exceptional player and the greatest of all time, and this is her farewell, but after a point, if she gets to the final, and quite frankly, I'm not ruling it out for reasons I'll explain later, but if, she gets to the final, they're really going to give it such a sort of one-sided build-up. I think they've really got to start being more fair to the women who are coming out and trying to beat her. And to give Nanette Kontaveit as much credit as I possibly can, because she deserves it. I'm sorry, we'll try and keep saying that right. I thought she did brilliantly. She only really went away in the last game when she was broken pretty comfortably, and you could see that the writing was on the wall. She was already 5-2 down in the set, and it got a bit much. But for the rest of the match, she played brilliantly, I thought. She played a great first set. It was really tight. She broke back as soon as she was broken. They went to a tie-break. It was on serve. Both women served brilliantly in the tie-break. And Kontaveit just missed a drop shot into the net. And that was it, really. It was literally a mini-break decided it. And Yeah, you feel sorry for her, but that's tennis. I'm afraid you've got to play clutch in tie breaks, and Serena did, and Serena served brilliantly all night. But then Kontaveit comes out and wins the first 3 games of the second set and takes a commanding lead and levels it pretty quickly, like 35 minutes for that second set, and takes it to a decider. And like I said, look, Serena played brilliantly. She served extremely well. Her second serve was still a bit ropey, but nowhere near as bad as it was against Kovanic when she hit about 9 double faults. She moved pretty well for Serena. She struck the forehand brilliantly. And, yeah, I mean, even her defence was pretty good. So, I mean, good luck to Ajla Tomljanovic stopping her on Friday night. I mean, because it will be night. I'm sure of it. It's not out yet, but it will be. Friday night, under the lights, 25,000 people all screaming Serena's name. You know, and this is what actually annoyed me. And I know New York crowds are rowdy and that's fine. But, like, you know, cheering double faults, cheering missed first serves, you know, despite Alison Hughes desperately trying to tell them to stop. Calling out during points, literally calling out during points. I mean, yeah. Kontaveit broke down in the Estonian part of her press conference, saying something like, I'm not ashamed to lose to Serena. It was really difficult with the crowd, and then she just broke down. I mean, yeah, it's obviously an incredibly intense atmosphere out there, and it could just be an outpouring of emotion, and maybe she'll explain herself later on, but I felt really sorry for her. I think she deserved more than that, to be quite frank. And Ajla Tomljanovic is going to have to steel herself for that. Now, I don't doubt that Tomljanovic can do it. She obviously played Raducanu at Wimbledon last year in the 4th round, which was a pretty febrile atmosphere in number 1 with the roof closed and had been waiting around all day. And obviously, she only had to play a set of it because Raducanu retired with those breathing difficulties. But yeah, maybe she'll be able to deal with it. Look, Serena's probably favourite for that match, and then she either plays Alexander Krunic or Ludmila Samsonova, both of whom beat seeds today. And hell, I mean, I think you make her favourite against either of those, and then all of a sudden she's in a quarterfinal against Ons Jabeur or Shelby Rogers or Kudermetova. You think she wins that, and then we get a semi-final against maybe Coco Gauff if she gets that far. And my feeling is that the best result here, because, look, it would be amazing if Serena won this US Open, and I'm not ruling it out. But I don't know how good it would be for women's tennis for Serena to win this US Open. So for me, the dream, I think, is that she faces Coco Gauff, her kind of natural successor in game style, in activism, in civil leadership, and superstardom. I think the ideal scenario is that they play in the semi-finals and that Coco Gauff wins a really good match. Because, well, the TV numbers for that would be completely insane, and it would elevate Coco Gauff's stardom to a whole new level. So, I think that's the answer to the question of what is the ideal scenario in the bottom half of the draw. Because, I say as usual, but again, it's fallen apart. There are... Number 3 seed, Maria Sakkari, is out. I asked Vicky, our good friend who is a journalist from Greece, who's not had a great week because Stefanos Tsitsipas went out in the first round and now Sakkari's gone out in the second round. She just said she didn't play very well. Wang Zhiyu, is a very decent player, but yeah, I mean, Sakkari would expect to win that. She's the number 3 seed. But yeah, fascinating to see what happens with Serena now. She's playing doubles on Thursday night, of course, with Venus against Lucy Hradecka, who actually beat Serena and Venus in 2013 at the US Open and then won the title. It's quite impressive. And Linda Noskova, who actually wasn't born when Serena and Venus started winning doubles titles. So 20 years apart, those two Czech girls, and this is probably the biggest, well, certainly the biggest match of Noskova's life. Hradecka might have something else to say about that, given her long and storied doubles career. I suppose on that note, we should move on to Thursday and what is to come and the biggest matches there. I think it's a slightly quiet day. Rafa Nadal is playing Fabio Fognini in the very, very late game, which I think will be too late for most people in the UK to watch because it'll be about 2 a.m. After the doubles on Ash. I mean, Fognini obviously has a record of having beaten Nadal in the past, but not much real hope, I think. It's a big day for the Brits. Dan Evans and Cam Norrie both playing. Evans against Duckworth, Norrie against Sousa. Both matches you'd expect them to win and make the third round. If they do, it'll be 4 British men through to the third round for what we think is the first time since the 1970s. We haven't had the statisticians check that yet, but it'll be a long time, I would think. Swiatek against Sloane Stephens has potential to be a decent match as well. It's also got potential to be a bit of a stinker, so kind of wait and see on that one. If you're looking for a sort of rogue, entertaining match, I would suggest either Potapova, Zhang, 2 up-and-comers, or maybe Putintseva, Niemeyer. Everyone knows how much I like cool Niemeyer. She hits a massive ball. Big serve, anyway. Putintseva has some really good results. I mean, Cornet Siniakova is not a bad match either. The upset of the day for me is Linda Fruhvirtova against Garbiñe Muguruza. We know how difficult a year Muguruza has had, and Fruhvirtova is a Czech teenager, which basically means she's automatically excellent. She won the Le Pitiés, which is a prestigious juniors tournament. She was the world number junior 2, I think, last year, and she's now, I mean, she had a run to the 4th round of Miami where she beat like Kovanic, Mertens and someone else, and Azarenka, but Azarenka retired from that match in a bit of a weird one. I haven't listened to her podcast yet, but I'm reliably informed it explains everything. So yeah, that's my kind of upset pick, so it might be worth watching for that. I don't know how many other matches I will necessarily watch tomorrow. It's a quiet evening. It might be one where we try and get an early dart after such a late dart this evening. Oh, and speaking of dart, Harriet Dart was in action today. She lost to Dalma Galfi, which was such a winnable match on paper. Harriet played nowhere near the level that she knows she can. If she'd won, she would have become British number 1, overtaking Emma Raducanu, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, she didn't play well. She lost in straight sets. And yeah, she came into press afterwards and just it all came flooding out. And she pretty much, the first word she said was a sort of sob, and then we gave her a minute and we said, do you want to carry on? And she said, yeah, I do. And credit to her, she got herself together and talked it out and talked about how she played a lot of new tournaments this year, and you know she's newly inside the top 100, so they've obviously had a different schedule, and she feels pretty burnt out, I think. So I felt dreadfully sorry for her. A big learning experience this summer, you know, in terms of how many tournaments she can cope with and what a schedule that works for her looks like. She's not won a lot of matches this summer since Wimbledon, and you know that's obviously not what you want to be doing. So yeah, did feel quite sorry for her. And if you're listening, Harriet, which you maybe, I don't know, you know, you've done yourself really proud. You got through to the second round of the US Open for the first time, and yeah, we all have bad days at the office, and you'll have plenty of good days at the office. So yeah, a bit of a low note to end on, but overall a magical day at the US Open. Thursday, there's a lot on there that could be exciting as well, and there's lots of British prospects that are definitely worth looking out for.
Sports Social Podcast Network.